In this video we are going to talk about top 10 scary mental asylum in the US. So before starting this video, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for future updates. With horrifying records of violence, torture, illness, and death, it's no surprise that these 10 haunted asylums are among the most terrifying places on the planet. We've started offering overnight ghost hunts for those interested in witnessing a ghost hunt at some of the country's most haunted places. 10. Utah's Old Tool Hospital. Old Tool Hospital began as a family home in 1897. It was converted into the country poorhouse in 1913, where the aged and those with special needs were cared for. By 1953, the structure had been transformed into the Old Tool Hospital, which included better patient accommodations, as well as private bathrooms and a dedicated morgue. The hospital made its name as the filming venue for Stephen King's The Stand until it was closed down in 2001. Old Tool Hospital has been the scene of several hauntings and accounts of paranormal activity over the years. Wes, an Alzheimer's survivor, is said to haunt the hospital, with his favorite location being the room where he was admitted while alive. Several other ghostly figures have been seen in the hospital, including a small boy and Samuel F. Lee, the man who designed the house for him and his family in 1897. 9. Illinois, Alton Mental Health Hospital. The Alton Mental Health Hospital is the only facility on this list that is still operating today. This hospital, which was built in the early 1900s, is notorious for its harsh mistreatment of its patients, many of whom were subjected to electrode shock therapy, lobotomies, and cold water treatments, many of which were commonplace at the time. Many people today, including employees, patients, and tourists, have confirmed hearing strange noises, ranging from doors slamming shut randomly to inaudible whisperings. One of the most terrifying accounts comes from a nurse on duty who overheard someone ask, "Who's that?" When she turned around to answer, she found that no one was in the building and that no one had been there at the time. A second nurse experienced the same thing later that day in the same place. 8. Danvers State Lunatic Asylum. Danvers State Lunatic Asylum, also known as the Witch's Castle on the Hill, was constructed in 1878 on a site that was originally in Salem Village, the first real venue of the Salem witch trials in 1962. Danvers was once known for its cutting-edge therapies and outstanding patient care, but it wasn't long before the asylum succumbed to a lack of funding, overstaffing, and overcrowding, deteriorating into something more similar to a death camp. Between 1940 and 1950, the hospital housed over 2,000 patients in a structure built for only 600. Patients became haggard and ghostly as a result of being isolated for days at a time. The condition was so bad that even dead patients went unnoticed for days, if not weeks. Danvers State Lunatic Asylum was dismantled, demolished, and rebuilt into the apartments it is today in 1992. 7. Pennsylvania's Byberry Mental Hospital. Byberry Mental Hospital is ranked number 7 on our most haunted list. Byberry Mental Hospital first opened its doors to the public in 1907 as a working farm for the mentally ill, before transforming into a full-fledged mental hospital in the 1920s. When more patients were admitted to the hospital, Byberry's population increased rapidly, resulting in extreme patient negligence and alarming levels of violence. Owing to a shortage of funding, the hospital fell into disrepair, forcing patients to make do with no clothes, inadequate food, and sewage-filled hallways as bedrooms. Solitary isolation, routine beatings, electric shock treatments, restraining devices, and lobotomies were all common practices. Despite the fact that state officials closed Byberry Mental Hospital in 1990 after a lengthy investigation uncovered inhumane living conditions, the institution's dark history lives on. 6. York's Rolling Hills Asylum. Rolling Hills is the 6th stop on our whirlwind tour of haunted mental institutions. In 1827, Rolling Hills Asylum was established as the Genesee County Poor Farm, a dumping ground for society's outcasts. Orphans and widows coexisted with the seriously mentally ill and offenders, many of whom were referred to as prisoners. More than 1,700 deaths have been recorded, with hundreds more unclaimed bodies suspected to be buried nearby. The poor farm was transformed into the Old Country Home and Infirmary in the 1950s before being turned into a series of shops and eventually an antique mall. What are the records from this authentically haunted asylum? Susie Yenser, the Rolling Hills case manager, was working on a public ghost hunt in 2007 when one of the strangest events occurred. The group was sitting in a circle in the basement when Susie began to speak. A glow stick, which was the only source of light in the room, began to sway back and forth, a rocking horse began to rock back and forth, and several people saw a hand appear and reach for a ball. 5. Lunatic Asylum of Athens, Ohio. The Athens Lunatic Asylum in Ohio comes in at number 5 on our list of the top old haunted insane asylums. The asylum first opened its doors in January 1874, specializing in the care of mentally and criminally ill patients admitted by the court or their own families. The facility began as a quiet and fun atmosphere where patients could relax and recover, but it soon developed into an overcrowded hospital that relied on barbaric procedures such as electroshock therapy, ice water baths, and ice pick lobotomies. 4. Essex County's Essex Mountain Sanatorium. The Essex Mountain Sanatorium is the next stop on our tour of America's haunted abandoned mental hospitals. The sanatorium was established in 1873 as the Newark City Home, which was intended to serve as an orphanage as well as a place of reform for the city's misbehaving children. The dedicated female building was converted into Essex Mountain Sanatorium in 1906 to care for tuberculosis patients after a catastrophic fire, the rebuilding of 2 new houses, and a decrease in the number of girls sent to the hospital. 3. West Virginia Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, built between 1858 and 1881, is one of the world's scariest asylums. It's also the world's second largest, having been designed to accommodate up to 250 patients before hitting its height in the 1950s, when over 2,400 people were crowded into the hospital. Thousands of people died here over the years as a result of bizarre experimental therapies and extreme negligence. The asylum was closed in 1994 due to the physical deterioration of the facility and improvements in the treatment of mental illness. The grounds for being admitted to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum were almost endless, ranging from minor infractions like falling off a horse or laziness to ludicrous matters like imaginary female trouble, or husband desertion up to serious cases like murders and PSTD. As a result of this wide spectrum, a variety of mismatched patients were cooped up together, with catastrophic results. 2. Kentucky's Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Waverly Hills Sanatorium is ranked second. It began as Waverly School in the late 1800s and became a hospital in 1908, with the capacity to safely treat 40 to 50 tuberculosis patients. As the disease spread, the hospital was enlarged to serve at least 400 patients and was known as one of the best facilities available at the time. Following the discovery of a tuberculosis-curing antibiotic in 1961, the hospital was closed. Many consider Waverly Hills Sanatorium to be the most spiritually active location in the world, with ghost reports coming in on a regular basis. The terrifying stories focus on the story of a nurse who hanged herself from a light bulb wire after learning she was pregnant out of wedlock by the sanatorium's owner. Many odd sightings have also been recorded in the death tunnel, a place where dead bodies were disposed of out of sight of the living. 1. The Asylum of Pennhurst in Pennsylvania. Finally, Pennhurst Asylum in Pennsylvania, the most haunted asylum on our list. Pennhurst Asylum is one of the scariest locations on the planet, with a history rife with strong allegations of neglect, violence, and torture, as well as accounts of psychiatric patients being bound to the walls, infants locked in cribs for years, and even murders. The structure, which occupied 120 acres and housed more than 10,000 patients at any given time, was built in 1908 as a state school for the physically and mentally impaired. The facility was often accused of dehumanization and was confirmed to provide no assistance to the mentally ill until being closed in 1986, following multiple reports of resident harassment. When Pennhurst was shut down, the buildings were left as they were, with patients' belongings strewn about and medical equipment decaying. So that's it for today's video. What do you think of our list? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell before you go. Thanks for watching.